Hello. Hello. Good morning, everyone. We are starting in a couple of minutes. Would appreciate silence in the auditorium as we are streaming this live as well as connected on Zoom with other participants from across the country. तेच सांगत होतो मी तुला आधी मला पोस्टर हवा होता मला झूम दिसाय हो यूट्यूबवर मला फ्रीज हवं होतं.
Hi. Yes, we are just in the process of adding. I'm just doing that. I'm just getting it.
दोन्ही दिसतं हे इन्सेटमध्ये दिसतं. उलटं करा. हां उलटं करा. टेक ओव्हर नाही येणार आहे. सो
We can't change color. So what I've written right now, I invite our guest. नाही ते फक्त नाव आहे. I invite our guest of honor गजानन.
our guest of honor, Gajana, Vice President Mansur Architecture, was supposed to deliver the inaugural address due to urgent meeting. He can't connect right now. He has conveyed his best wishes to us. He would be taking, whenever available next, we would try and have him deliver his address in today, tomorrow. Open-ended सोडायचं. Meanwhile, I'll just introduce Gajanan Ramji. Gajanan Ram sir does this. Perfect. We thank Council of Architecture and Gajanan Ramji for their support. We thank the council for now. We move on to our keynote for today.
Link.
मला यूट्यूबची लिंक कधी देणार आहे? जेव्हा वेलकम करशील वी ऑल्सो वेलकम एव्हरीवन हू हॅव कनेक्टेड ऑनलाईन फ्रॉम ऑल ओव्हर द कंट्री. अरे फुल स्क्रीन होत नाही आहे ना ते इथे ना फुल स्क्रीनच होत नाही आहे ते टक्केच नाही आहे त्याला काही या इमेजला फुल स्क्रीन असं हां सॉरी.
We're done.
आय थिंक इन अ मिनिट यू रोल. थांब मी वेदांगीला पाठवतोय लिंक. तू नको.
माझं झालं, मी पाठवलं तिला. तू ग्रुपवर टाक फक्त.
लागतो.
खाली आहेत का हे लोक, वैशाली मॅम वगैरे विचारलं ना.
मी कॉन्फरन्स आणि टाइम्सवर टाकतोय आणि BRHवर पण.
मी ह्याच्यावर टाकू का, इन्स्टावर? आणि मोकळे हो.
I would appreciate silence in the auditorium as instructed. We are about to start our day one of the National Conference on Built Environment and Beyond 3.0. I'll request Architect Nishigandha Sakardande to take over the proceedings and formally welcome all of you. We've been connected through Zoom from all over the country as well. So, yes, going live now.
Thank you, Architect Mahesh. We will just be beginning the program in a few minutes. We are waiting for our dignitaries to join us. कुठले 3 नंबर?
On Zoom also they are able to hear you. Right? They are able to see you.
आता हे ॲडमिट
He will do it.
ओके ओके
तू बंदच करून टाकतो. You don't need to make anybody co-participate. This is convenient. This on केल्यावर त्यांना पण ऐकू जाईल, 11 लोक कनेक्टेड आहेत.
So when I start, I have to just turn that off. Yes. अरेंज कर पुढच्या 2-3 मिनिटात ते अरेंज झालं पाहिजे. महेश ठीक आहे ठीक आहे.
आता तू त्या कॅमेरासमोर हलू नको, तू यूट्यूबवर दिसतेस पूर्ण.
माझ्या बॅगेत असेल. ते नाही आहे तर आय विल टेल. शुड वी बिगिन? This is a request for everyone to kindly settle down. A very good morning to everyone present here today. A good morning to our attendees who are attending on the online streaming as well. It is an absolute honor to welcome you all to BNCA Research Hub's National Conference, a prestigious gathering of experts, scholars, and professionals dedicated to the theme Built Environment and Beyond 3.0 Challenges and Opportunities. We are privileged to have esteemed dignitaries, distinguished speakers, and enthusiastic participants joining us today and tomorrow. I am architect Nishigandha Sakhardande, the coordinator for the National Conference and your host for this inaugural session, and I assure you an engaging and insightful event ahead. I request the convener for the conference, Dr. Vaishali Latkar, to kindly address the audience and give us some information about the National Conference.
Thank you, Nishigandha. Dignitaries present today, my colleagues, and all the participants who are participating in this conference. I welcome you all to this conference, Built Environment and Beyond, 3 Challenges and Opportunities. This conference is third in the series, focusing on challenges and opportunities. The Council of Architecture and ESA are the knowledge partner for this conference. We are grateful to President Professor Ajay Purohit ji, Vice President Gajanan Ramji, as well as COI TRC Director Professor Jayashree Deshpande for the Council support. ESA is also supporting this event, so we are grateful to Mahesh Bangad, Chairman of ESA, for this support. This initiative of Research Hub has begun with the intention of inculcating good research culture among the architects. Earlier conferences were held online. This conference is going to be in mixed mode. The intention of this conference is to generate a dialogue between architects focusing on the different aspects of built environment. So papers were invited under 7 categories, including art and culture, environment, landscape, AI, regenerative design. We received a whopping response of 181 abstracts for the same. These were scrutinized, and wherever needed, authors are asked to revise it and submit it along with the final papers. So finally, we have received 84 papers. These papers were double-blind reviewed by 20 reviewers across India. We are fortunate to have reviewers from esteemed institutes like SPA Bhopal, SPA Vijayawada, IIT Roorkee, IIT Madras, Jamia Millia, University Delhi, Chitkara University, University College Chandigarh, Mysore College, as well as Christ University, Bangalore. These reviewers are all reputed researchers in their own field, holding PhD in architecture. So we are thankful to those reviewers for raising the bar of standards for this particular conference. These papers, out of these 64 presentations, will be done today and tomorrow. This will be presented online as well as offline mode. Eminent scholars from different institutes in Pune and universities from Pune, other universities from Pune, will be chairing the sessions in this conference. We are also honored to have Dr. Manish Chalana from Washington University and Dr. Mohan Sirivardena from Liverpool John Moores University as keynote speakers on the first and second day respectively. We are also honored to have Vice President of the Council, Architect Gajanan Ramji, and Director COI TRC Pune, Professor Jayashree Deshpande, as guest of honors on first and second day respectively. Unfortunately, Gajanan Ramji just conveyed that he will not be able to join us due to some reason, but he has conveyed his wishes for the conference. We are thankful to you for your support, Gajananji. Heartfelt gratitude to all of them. We hope to have a meaningful and engaging dialogues for these 2 days. We are also exploring the possibility of coming up with a peer-reviewed publication with a reputed organization very soon. The whole thing is possible because of the support and encouragement by our principal, Dr. Anurag Kashyap, Vice President Dr. Sharvya Dungde, BRH Head Dr. Swati Sahasrabudhe, my conference team, co-convener Meera Shirolkar, coordinator Nishigandha Sakhardande, and other faculty members from Bnca as well as IT support from Bnca. The inaugural and valedictory sessions will be conducted in the auditorium today and tomorrow, while parallel sessions where presentations will be done will be conducted on the first floor in venue at venue 108 and 109, and the lunch will be served on the ground floor in the square courtyard. All the best for the presenters. I hope you will enjoy these 2 days with a kind of intellectual treat we will witness in the form of presentations that are going to happen today and tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, Nishigandha.
Thank you, Dr. Latkar. It is my privilege to introduce our distinguished guests. We have in presence with us our keynote speaker, Dr. Manish Chalana, who is a professor at University of Washington, Seattle, United States. We extend a warm welcome to our guests and express our gratitude for being present today. To symbolize the enlightenment and that knowledge brings us, we shall now proceed with paying tribute to Bharat Ratna Maharshi Dhondo Keshav Karve and Saraswati Ma, followed by the recital of a Saraswati Vandana. I request Vice Principal of Bnca, Dr. Sharvya Dongde, along with Dr. Swati Sahasrabudhe, and the convener and co-convener, Dr. Vaishali Latkar and Dr. Meera Shirolkar, to kindly guide our guests to the stage for the presentation of the garland to the bust.
या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रामृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I request all the esteemed guests to kindly take a seat on the stage. I now request Vice Principal of Bnca, Dr. Sharvya Dongde, to kindly say a few words about the conference.
Good morning and welcome to Bnca. I'm really happy to welcome you all for this third version of our annual conference titled Built Environment and Beyond. So we have been doing this for the past 3 years. We have been doing conferences earlier as well, and if some of you might remember our Healthy Cities conference, the first international conference that ever happened in this city. So we have been doing conferences every year, but now we have made it an annual feature with a given theme, with a given pattern, and we have kind of standardized it. And I am happy that we have been successfully running it for the past 2 years, and now this is the third season that this conference has run into. I am also sure that with all the thorough preparations that the conference team has made, thanks to the conference convener Dr. Vaishali, the co-convener Dr. Meera, and all her team including Nishigandha, Ketki, etc., etc. So this is going to be a very successful conference. The idea behind hosting a conference stems from the fact that for architecture, especially in India, research is a very new thing to happen. I don't remember when I was a student whether there were any research conferences happening in the field of architecture. Never in my 5 years in college I attended or heard of any conference happening about research. Can I close this? This is distracting. So we were the first generation of teachers perhaps who did our PhDs. We had guides who were very rare and who rarely had a PhD, but we had very few people. Now there are ample people in Pune with PhDs, so there is a good research culture which is developing in this city. I can't say whether it's true with all the other cities in India, but in Pune it is developing definitely, it's shaping up well. That's very distracting because I keep on seeing myself in that. No, when I move, that screen moves. So. Anyways, so that's the reason I think we are hosting these conferences to encourage research more and more in this field. Because every field grows with research, it just doesn't grow with practice. So we also need good research happening in our field, and that's one of these attempts to encourage research is our conferences like these. Secondly, I think conferences are best places to not only get new information, new knowledge, but also to interact, make connections, and somehow we learned to live online in the lockdown. So we have had online conferences the past 2 years. But I think a live conference is or gives you much more than an online conference. So a lot of things happen beyond the sessions. In the sessions also you get a lot of things, but beyond the sessions a lot of things happen. You interact, you question, there is good innocent gossip. You make connections, you make collaborations, and that is all important. That's the, I think, the liveliness of the conference comes from that. And that's something which at least has attracted me to different conferences, these things that happen on the sides of the sessions. So I will encourage all of you to make these connections, talk to each other, question each other, discuss things, bring up issues, make contacts, make collaborations, and I think that would be the success of this conference, and that would be a good takeaway for you as well after this conference. So once again, I welcome all of you. I am very thankful, as Dr. Vaishali has also stated, to all the people that have helped us to host this conference. I welcome Dr. Chalana, who has come all the way from the US, and he will deliver our keynote speech today. I am also thankful to the Council of Architecture, who have been our knowledge partners for this conference, specifically the President of the Council, Architect Abhay Purohit, Architect Gajanand Ram, and Architect Jayashree Deshpande, who have always supported all the endeavors that BNCA undertakes. I am also thankful to ASA to be one of the supporters of this conference. And I also thank Maharshi Karve Stri Shikshan Samstha, who has always encouraged us to undertake all these different projects that we think of. So once again, welcome to all of you. I hope you enjoyed the conference. 2 days full of discussions, academic food to be consumed, and I hope that you go back with a full stomach. Welcome again.
Thank you, Dr. Sharve, for your kind words. I would now like to introduce our guest of honor. Although he is not present with us for this session, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce him for the conference. Architect Gajanand Ram serves as the Vice President of the Council of Architecture in India, a position he has held since April 3rd, 2023. Prior to this role, he was the Chief Town Planner of Jharkhand and currently holds the position of General Manager, that is Operation and Town Planning, at Ranchi Smart City Corporation. As the state representative from Jharkhand, he was elected as Vice President for the term 2023 to 2026. His extensive experience in urban planning and architecture significantly contributes to the Council of Architecture's mission of regulating architectural education and practice in India. We are coordinating with him, and we hope that he can be live with us in the next 2 days, either today or tomorrow. I would thank him as the coordinator of this conference for the never-ending support of the Council of Architecture, for not just conducting this conference, but also for all the other endeavors that BNCA takes up. Today we have in our presence Dr. Manish Chalana, Professor, University of Washington, Seattle. Welcome, sir, to our conference. Dr. Manish Chalana specializes in urban design, historic preservation, and social justice in urban planning. He is the founder of the Center for Preservation and Adaptive Reuse and an adjunct professor in architecture and landscape architecture. His research explores diversity in preservation and planning with publications in leading journals. He co-edited the book Messy Urbanism, Understanding the Other Cities of Asia, along with Jeff Hu. Chalana has led study programs abroad in India, China, and Japan, focusing on urbanism and cultural resilience. A recipient of the Lionel Priest Distinguished Professor Award, he consults on international preservation projects and serves on key preservation committees. Today, his keynote address on There Is No There, Paradoxes and Possibilities for the Built Environment in the 21st Century will truly get us thinking about the built environment. I request Dr. Sharve Dongre to felicitate Dr. Chalana. And I would now invite our keynote speaker, Dr. Chalana, to deliver the keynote address.
I can use this.
All right, okay, no problem. Vinayak Dada na bola, please. I'll just load up your. नाही लॅपटॉप हाच आहे त्यांना नोट्ससाठी पाहिजे फक्त. So have you uploaded your presentation onto this?
I gave it to somebody.
Yeah, on the pen drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the name of the?
It has my last name Chalana.
Okay. All right.
Pune, you can say
Yeah,
Pune.
that one, yeah. Yeah, I'm just checking. हे आता आपल्याला काय काय झूमवर काय काय दिसतंय. झूमवर हे प्रेझेंटेशन दाखवायचं आहे. दाखवते मी तुम्हाला. म्हणजे त्यांची स्क्रीन आणि त्यांचं प्रेझेंटेशन. तर मी प्रेझेंटेशन उघडलं आहे इकडे खाली. हो, हे काय इथे हे करा ना प्लीज सर. हे वालं आहे.
I do need that for my notes. I can just leave it.
आता हे त्यांचं चालू आहे आणि हा त्यांचा फोटो इथे चालू आहे.
It's kind of like another. So how do I move the slides?
Just can just toggle on this
Toggle.
or go next.
Okay. So I need to put my screen here.
Okay. Okay.
So I need my notes. Okay. I think I'll be all right. Just a second. Okay.
हे हा टॅब कसा बंद करायचा. हा टॅब हाऊ डू वी विनायक दादा हा टॅब कसा बंद करायचा. हा वरचा हाईट फ्लोटिंग मीटिंग कंट्रोल्स. देयर वी गो. शेअर झालेलं थांबला का.
You want me to move that?
Wait.
Oh, is there an option to not use the mouse? Oh, okay. So here, yeah. So I'll have to. Can I put this on this side? Maybe I can put it like this. Okay. Okay. So can we move this up front a little? Okay. Okay. This should work. Yeah. So where is the?
You've given a PDF, right?
Say that again.
PDF, is it?
Yeah, it
You'll
is.
have to
This
move
this is it.
this way.
Yeah.
Up and down arrow.
Oh, just the arrow. Here. Okay, that's good. So I don't need this.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is fine. Yeah, so up and down, which is I need to go up. Okay. Can I start? Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me fine? Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here and share some grand ideas that I've put together for this conference. So when Vaishali asked me to do this keynote, I saw the title of the conference and I tried to create a talk that would best reflect on the main themes that I'm guessing you would be discussing in your sessions today. So it's a really meta talk to show some seeds of thoughts and ideas for your sessions, and I hope it would work in that regard. And as you can see that I use a provocative title called "There is no there." There's a typo in the title already. There should be there is no there, so that is my doing. I use Gertrude Stein's famous phrase, "There is no there there." It comes from her book in 1937 called Everybody's Autobiography. And she wrote this line while reflecting on her childhood home in Oakland, California, which she had revisited and where she had grown up. So she had fond memories of that place, but when she returns to that place as an adult, it was a completely different place, taken over by urban development. So when she was asked, what was there, she said there is really no there there. And since then, this phrase has begun to sort of hold more meaning, and it is now describing situations where something lacks substance, significance, or a meaningful core, right? So it conveys the idea that what one is searching for may be absent or no longer exists in a meaningful way. So in this context of this talk, it signals the fluidity and the evolving nature of built environments in the 21st century, and that's why I use it. Where traditional notions of place, stability, and permanence are being challenged by factors such as globalization, urbanization, and climate change, right? And as architects, we are not immune to those. We thought we were until recently. We are right. We're all not on the same boat, because climate change impacts us all differently. We're all in the same storm, if not in the same boat, right? So that's why I use this phrase to sort of think about these major themes and how they might be impacting our work as architects, designers, and planners, right? And so I'd like to share with you in this talk a set of paradoxes and possibilities. So not just paradoxes, but also possibilities of shaping built environments in an era of what I call uncertainty, transformation, and also a new way of thinking about design and planning, and urbanism and preservation. So it really, if we're not going to shift and keep doing or taking the route as business as usual, we're not going to be making an impact towards a more hopeful future or a better future. Sorry, am I not sounding? Oh, it's not. Should I be admitting people as I see, or I don't know who's watching me here, but okay, that works. The up and down works. Okay. Okay. So then I before I start with the critical set of paradoxes and possibilities, that is the structure of my talk, I want to first engage the framing concepts that I just talked about, urbanization and globalization, real quick, so that then you can see how those paradoxes and possibilities come together within that box of framework of globalization and urbanization, as well as climate change. So for most human history, as you can see in this graph created by the UN Population Division, we've lived in smaller communities. We've lived in urban areas, but the communities have been fairly small. Over the past few centuries, and particularly in the recent decade, that has shifted dramatically. There has been major advancements in health. That's why we're living longer. There's been a population growth. And then, of course, there's the industrialization that happened. So all that has fueled urbanization and rural to urban migration, and it still continues. In the chart, you will see that by now, the bulk of the people in the world live in urban contexts. Now, they don't live in urbanity that you might think of as Manhattan or Mumbai, but urban is a range, it's a scale. It's from small towns like perhaps Dhanbad in Jharkhand, which is not small, it has 1 million people, but all the way up to the NCR of Delhi and beyond. So urban is a scale as well. So more than half the people in this world are living in the urban context, and this number is going to continue to rise. In your lifetime, in your practical life, that number is going to become 60%, and by 2050, close to 70% of the population will be living in urban areas. So think of whatever you're doing is happening in a fast-paced urban environment. Let's see. It's not working, the arrow. Now it'll work. Oh, sorry. No.
We can just literally tap.
Oh, and how do I go back? Okay.
And tap.
Okay, all right, I'll remember that. Okay, sorry for that. So that's the urbanization frame in a nutshell. As you can imagine, there's a lot more to this. I'm just using a snapshot to create the context. The entire future growth of humanity will occur in cities, and it would occur in overwhelmingly what we call poor cities in the global north, global south, right? And majority of it will be in non-formal places, so what we call informal settlements. And I'm quoting Mike Davis, who wrote the famous book, Planet of Slums, right? And he's saying, essentially, shanty towns are the blueprint of urbanization in the 21st century. So urban informality that we do not seriously address is going to be something that as architects and planners, you have to deal with it centrally, because this, as Ananya Roy says, it is just a mode of urbanization. You don't need to bring any judgment. It is just how people shape and craft the urban environment and live there. But what we continue to do is that, we either fetishize it, architects especially, they focus on jugaad urbanism and all that. But, I have a problem with jugaad urbanism. If I push you down the stairs and then you spring back, I'm excited that you spring back, but why should I be pushing you down the stairs in the first place? So yes, jugaad happens, but why stress out people and create environments where they have to make do with little, right? So think about before you romanticize jugaad urbanism, or we pathologize it and problematize urban informality, right? We never, ever address it in any meaningful way. We otherize, fetishize, pathologize, problematize, or romanticize. We never do it in any serious way. But urban informality is not just now related to the global south, it is also being seen in global north. Surprise, surprise, even in the US, right? There are books now by Vineet Makhija wrote the first book on urban informality in North America. So you see urban informality not in a similar pattern like this in Manila, but in a different pattern. So there are two pieces to urban informality. One is, of course, the spatial piece that we so fully understand, but there's also a metaspatial networking piece, right? So urban informality works on multiple ways, and it's happening around the globe because, we are getting into this time of rapid urbanization, but also where gaps between the haves and the have-nots and inequities are only going to get greater. So you're going to see a lot of this type of urban informal settlements around the globe. Tap, right? Okay. So the third concept is the climate change, right? So climate change, climate crisis has been created by rapid urbanization and industrialization, so they have to take their blame for the part that they've done. But it will also be solved by the cities. That is what scholars are saying. So even though urban areas occupy only about 5% of the planet's spatial mass, they account for 70% of its carbon dioxide emissions. So there's a huge sort of, and like I said, by 2050, 70% of the population is going to be residing in urban areas. So as cities are growing, there's also a greater demand for resources like space, energy, water, and there will be demand for even greater transportation, which is the transportation and transit networks, which are huge polluters, right? So urban areas have to disproportionately deal with the the climate crisis, right? You can see the rising temperatures lead to urban heat island effect, sea level rising are literally sort of, drowning cities, if you will, like Mumbai and Miami. They're slowly drowning. There's going to be water scarcity, poor air quality, and then again, climate migration. People are going to be forced to be moving from one part of the city to the other, from the low ground to the upper grounds. That might lead to displacement, or people from one country are going to find another country, like the Rohingyas in Bangladesh and other climate refugees that are seeking places where they can raise their children in a healthy environment and not having to deal with climate crisis. Okay, so the climate crisis, one more slide on it, is, I show this because I was in Cape Town in 2018 when the city was expected to run out of water. And that was called Day Zero, right? We were going to go for a research project. We deliberated if we should go or not, but we ended up going. But that was an alarm bell, before COVID, about how the cities might have to directly deal with the environmental crisis, right? And since then, there have been many, many other alarm bells, including the more recent fires in California, right? LA fires. So it was heartening to see the messaging that was put out, right? And how the community got together and adhered to the water restrictions, and somehow the crisis barely scratched through the city, but it really brought urbanity in the context of climate crisis. So much of your work is likely going to be located in the urban context. So you're going to be dealing with all these crises like ground zero, wildfires, heat island effect, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the framing context before I introduce a set of paradoxes and possibilities. So now I'm shifting to paradoxes and possibilities. No worry. Oh, that thing stays there? Okay. Oh, it does keep popping up? Okay. So I was thinking about, for this conference, I was sitting with a lot of different paradoxes. So I don't think I will have time to deal with all of them, but I'll share with you some in the interest of time. So I start with the first paradox, density versus livability, right? Because cities are now promoting high density to accommodate what we talked about, the growing populations. And this might seem odd in the Indian context because here we are used to engaging high densities anyways, right? We have not done density solving in the way the West has done. So bear with me here, right? So why is density good? Density is good because proponents argue that it contains sprawl. And once you funnel growth and development in areas that already have growth and development, you free up land for agriculture, for forests and other uses, right? So you not only maintain the ecology, you also maintain eco services that are really important for cities as well. Because cities are basically, if you shift the scale, they're part of a larger urban ecological systems. So you have to be thinking about that, right? So all good. These arguments are all good. So urban planners and architects have tried various models to accommodate density while maintaining livability. That makes sense? So modernists have given us the high-rise model, and what you see here is Le Corbusier's Villa Radiant plan that thankfully never got constructed in Paris, right? So they gave us these tall towers, where you can organize density in vertical massing. That's what they gave us. Le Corbusier freed up the ground plane and used pilotis, right? So his idea was that the entire buildings would float on the greens and the entire green would be open for people to use for multiple activities. Fairly failed idea because people didn't quite adapt to these very vast open spaces that looked like they were concrete massing. So they didn't quite take to that. So that's one experiment with density. The other is that you see here is the suburbs. So we've tried to organize density or de-densify in the U.S. context by creating this very low per hectare residences in what is called as suburbs. These leafy, green, park-like settings where you live, and you only live there, you don't work there, right? So we've tried different ways to create that, but both have really compromised livability, right? There's a lot of research that says how suburbs have compromised livability. It leads to disconnection with the city. Initially it led to isolation of women because they didn't drive, so they relied on their husbands to get out of the suburbs. It leads to growing loneliness and disconnect. It also has health implications because you do not have places to walk to. You just rely on cars. So there's obesity crisis that is in the US is also tied to that form of de-densification, if you will. This is also a model that hasn't been able to bring together livability and density in any meaningful way because it led to concentration of people and this was used as public housing in the US. I don't know how many of you knew about Pruitt-Igoe. It had to be demolished because it was concentration of poverty in one place and all that. So both models have failed. But I'm going to show you now a model that some new ideas that people are engaging with that is bringing density and livability together in sort of more successful ways. Is it perfect? No, but in some ways where they're finding this marriage between density and livability and yet not compromising on what people seek from public spaces. So what you see here is generally dubbed as Vancouverism, right? You may have read it in literature. So what Vancouverism does is that it creates these skinny tall towers, but it breaks the scale down. It uses split zoning. So in front of the tower, it is zoned for a townhome, and in the back, it is a tower, right? So you see here, this is all townhome, and then in the back, it's a tower. And in the picture, you see the townhomes on the left, right? So it uses split zoning, and it breaks the scale. So when you're walking along these streets, you feel like walking because they're mixed uses. You feel like you're walking in a neighborhood. You don't even your sight lines are blocked by the townhouse. You don't see the skinny towers in the back. You feel like it's a neighborhood scale. You feel like getting to know your neighbors. You walk around, right? So Vancouver has been very effectively done this, although it's also tied it to a large park system that runs along these towers and also relies on effective transit because they don't want you to rely on cars, right? So it's called Vancouverism, even though it may not sound radical, but it is in the Western context because we've never thought of bringing, these two different urban forms together. And so here's an idea where density and livability has achieved some positive results. In the interest of time, I'll move on to the next paradox, which is preservation versus progress. Right? So the built environment, as I noted, is layered, right? It's not one plane, it's multiple planes coming together, right? So it retains patterns and etchings from different layers, right? So you walk around here in Pune, you'll find different built environments, different patterns, different roads following old paths that might have been laid from the time of the Marathas and such. So there are different patterns and etchings that sort of create the complexity in the built environment, right? With heritage conservation, there's always this conflict between preserving some of those patterns and seeking to develop or progress, right? So heritage conservations are always in conflict with modern infrastructure development, right? Uh, Savitri Bhai Phule's Vada was recently demolished. That's not a conflict because I know it was in a bad state of affairs. But here's a really a woman who's made so much difference in Indian history. You would think that we could raise money to preserve the original Vada and not take the shortcut of pulling it down and recreating one. That is sort of that I feel is a lost opportunity because yes, you can recreate it, but recreation doesn't have the same associational value with it as the original mass would have. So what preservation does is either they let go of places like Savitri Vada and just focus on Taj Mahal, the monuments, the mighty in the landscape, and forget about everything. So the rest is up for grabs. They can be demolished for whatever reasons, right? They just focus on what cultural geographers call monuments that are marked by velvet ropes, right? And if you just focus on monuments that are marked by velvet ropes, you're not really preserving the history. You're just preserving the history and memory of just a few elite people in the globe, right? But not how everyday people who might have shaped the society for good, somebody like Savitri Bhai Phule, right? So we're not really worried about that. But the field has since then tried to bring together this the paradox of preservation versus progress, right? So they're saying, well, you can do both. You can preserve and you can do progress. You don't have to do either or. So one of the ways they do it is what we call adaptive reuse, which all of you know. I don't have to deal with it. Every building has embodied energy in it. Embodied energy is all the energy it took to create that building, which means the number of labor hours, the materials, where the materials were dug from, transportation costs, right? Labor cost, intellectual cost. So every building has all this cost embedded in it. So preservationists are saying, keep these buildings because they have already used up a lot of energy. Don't just go and demolish them because it's not good for the environment, it's not good for sustainability. And at a macro level, it is adding to the climate crisis, right? So one of the ways preservationists are suggesting you do it is through adaptive reuse, because many of the buildings are being torn down even though they have a lot of shelf life left in it. So we're just trashing the embodied energy. And if you note, 3/4 of the landfill in the world is building debris. So all of us have our hands bloodied in it. 3/4 of the landfill. And it takes millennia for the building debris to, break down. Concrete breaks down in like 500-700 years before it can. So you have to think about what you're doing and how your work is contributing to this crisis. You could do. Preservationists are also arguing that you can bring progress and preservation together in sort of not shying away from history or not like being so respectful for history, especially everyday history. You don't need everything bound by Shanivada has, plus a 100-meter edge, plus a 200-meter edge. You don't need all that. You can have old and new embrace each other. And I think for the architects in the room, it really leads to more creative design. When I see architects going and pulling off an old building, I hold my head that you're really not thinking aesthetically. You should be thinking about that building. If not the building itself, the materials of that, using it in the way you reimagine the space, right? And So here's an example from Seattle where an old warehouse neighborhood, you can see the little warehouse in front and a new condo development in the back. So they're just embracing each other and being comfortable with each other. And some might say that, it's an uneasy marriage, but whatever it is still respecting the layers of history in the urban settings. Another example, real quick, is what we call adaptive reuse and contextual design. The architects did not shy away from using everyday historic buildings in their new development. What you see here is these 4 parcels of land where you read traced loft. There are 4 parcels that were brought together that you see in the image up there. And they got rid of this little red building, the garage building, and this is what they created, right? Which really adds to the design, right? It makes it intriguing. You pause and say, oh, what is this, right? And again, people are not really doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because Seattle has incentivized it. What you see up there, the townhomes above the historic building, that is the bonus FAR they got for preserving the historic mass, right? And that bonus FAR in a Seattle market is worth millions of dollars. So developers would spend the money it takes to restore and keep the building because they know that they can recover it from the incentive FAR. So those are some of the ways we have to think about to be thinking of bringing this paradox of preservation and progress together. Okay. So third paradox, right, is sustainability, and they're all bleeding into each other, is sustainability versus growth, right? Cities and industries, especially in the global south, are rapidly urbanizing and industrializing, right? So what US went through in the early 1900s, right, late 19th century and early 20th century, we're going through it now. This peak of rapid urbanization and industrialization, which brings with it a lot of pollution. And believe it or not, US cities were more polluted than our cities 100 years back. You look at Cleveland, there's a river called Cuyahoga. It was on fire 3 times. The river was on fire because there was so much oil from the industry that was on the river. It was on the Times cover at least twice, the burning river, right? So there was a lot of pollution. That's why India and China look at US now and say, well, you've done your part in polluting the nation. It's now our turn to pollute it, to get past that level of progress, so then we can look back and have the luxury to talk about, deep pollution and such, right? So, but industrial growth is necessary for economics. We know that. But at the same time, yes, US did it when we didn't have this much information. But now we do. So how can we allow for sustainability and growth to happen at the same time? So how can this paradox be addressed? And we're already trying to do that through practice that lands here, right? Much of the practice we do are landing in different overlaps. But you should be striving to have your practice design land in this quadrangle, right? And you should never be forgetting social. That is the easy piece of sustainability. Sustainability has 3 pillars, and nobody remembers social. They only remember economic and environmental, so they don't remember social. But if you truly want to claim that you are a sustainable practice, you have to think about social and equity and justice in your work. Otherwise, you can say that I'm environmentally sustainable and economically sustainable, but I'm not socially sustainable. I have not done much in that area. So we're now using a lot of different urban green technologies to balance the dichotomy between sustainability and growth, So there is, all that, I'm not going to get into it. There is development of carbon neutral infrastructure, renewable energy solutions, eco-friendly transportation, and so on and so forth. So lots is happening in this area. I'm going to show you an example from, again from Seattle, which is considered as the greenest building in the world, right? So this is, again, at a macro level, you can do your part. And if you're doing one building, you may say, well, it's just one building. That, but it's still a meaningful contribution to the climate crisis. I show you Bullitt Center. It's a standout example of a net positive building, which means it's a building that is generating more energy that it can use. So it's just giving it to the neighborhood for other buildings to use, right? And it is what was I going to say? I'm forgetting. It's an commercial building. You can see it has a very fancy solar roof, retractable solar roof system. And I'm going to just give you a fleeting overview of it. You can read more about the details of how the sustainability works here, right? So there's an extendable rooftop for solar energy, and Seattle barely gets any sun. And yet it is able to generate so much solar energy. Imagine what you can do in India. You could run probably, I don't know, neighborhoods with roofs like this. So there's rainwater harvesting. They're completely off the grid. They don't need anything from the city. They don't need sewer connection. They don't need rainwater. They do everything themselves, right? They're composting toilets. There's natural ventilation, so they're not relying on artificial air conditioning and heating. And because of that, it's been able to achieve the results that it has. So this can be a prototype of in what direction the marriage between sustainable practice as well as addressing climate crisis to some degree, right? It is a LEED platinum building. I don't know how many of you know LEED. It's a certification system in the world. I think also in India, it's leadership in energy and environmental design, and platinum is the highest rating it can get. So moving on, you can read more about it if you like. I want to cover some other examples of how sustainability and growth are being addressed at the city level, not just at a site level, which is much easier to do. You can create a green building way more quicker than a green city, right, for obvious reasons. So at a different scale, let's look at how cities are trying to balance sustainability and growth. The example is from Amsterdam, and a very recent example, post-COVID. So Amsterdam took a radical step in becoming the first city in the world to commit to what they call a circular economy, right? So everything is in a circle. It's not a line. You're not throwing things. You're just making it go around in circles. I think this is a very effective way in India, because a lot of this is already happening in India without even giving it the fancy word. We just need to systematize it some where the middle classes can participate in it. Now, again, the have-nots have been doing circular economy forever without needing Amsterdam to show them the light, right? But for middle classes, we might need a better structure to participate in the circular economy. So what they do is they have identified three biggest carbon culprits. One is, of course, the built environment. The other is consumer goods, and the third is food and organic waste, right? And they have determined that 80% of the carbon emission in their city is from these three, right? And so they're targeting it as a regenerative economy. So there are, systems in place where you can go and leave all your clothes that can then go through a process of being either repaired, which is subsidized, and then out in the market again at a cost. So I'm not covering anything here, just giving you an idea that how you can think about circular economy in the context of Indian cities, right? It's, of course, data-driven, so there's some cost associated to it. It's AI-driven also, because they want to see your consumption patterns and your waste patterns to see how to network these systems. There is also a focus on sustainable materials and reuse of existing building materials. So by 2050, apparently nothing will go to the landmines. landfills in Amsterdam. All the materials will be reused, remanufactured, done something, right? So, and the same with food, sharing and sustainably disposing of waste and so on and so forth. A lot of sharing model here, barter systems here that are coming. So it's only been tested for like 5 years now, 4 years. And if you read about it, it's looking hopeful. Is it perfect? No, but it's looking hopeful. So it's a good attempt to be thinking about these paradoxes that we completely sort of, put our hands on our head and say, what can we do? It's the policy. Well, that's not it. That anyone can say, what can I do? What can you do despite the policy? That is the question you should be asking yourself. Yes, that's there. What can I do despite that? Okay, so a couple more paradoxes. One is, again, we're in the time of rapid globalization, where all the cities in India, especially, and other parts of Asia, as scholars have said, are losing their identity. Cities, what made Asian cities Asian? William Lang is one who's written about it, a book on Asian cities, and he's arguing that we're just losing our identity. We don't know what we're doing, but we're doing because we have to do, right? So there's a lot of challenges around this, and it also directly ties with aesthetics, because generally global architecture tends to overshadow local cultural and social values, right? Because of its aspiration and scale, and the money it brings with it. What you see here is Safdi's Altair residence in Colombo, right? It is his most recent design in Colombo, and you can see how it stands out, right? But at the same time, it's really not taking anything from the context of Colombo and just creating a high-rise massing. I think it's one of my least favorite designs of Safdi's. He's done much better work elsewhere. So as cities are, becoming rapidly globalizing, especially cities like Delhi and Mumbai and Bangalore, they tend to undervalue their traditional knowledge, and then whenever they are using vernacular elements, they're just fetishizing it, putting a jharoka here, adobe wall here, and so on and so forth, without really getting into why that element was used, what was the nature of that element, and how we can meaningfully integrate it in the building, right? So you see here this is globalization is happening, but at the same time, what is called localization happening, right? Because once you're so bombarded with global aesthetics, you're also sort of, it shakes you out, and you begin to think, okay, what do we have? What is our identity? Let's look back. Maybe there's something worth it that we can, revive. And so there's localization is a simultaneous process with globalization, and there's another fancy term now, which is called glocalization, where you're taking global and local and sort of the hybrid of that. So what you see here is, of course, Jeffrey Bawa's cafe in Colombo. I was just there, so that's why I have these images from there. And he's always sort of, rooted his work in the vernacular. And he's rooted his work in the vernacular in very sort of meaningful ways. So there is, there's an earthy feeling, and groundedness to his work. But of course, Bawa didn't have to do what Safdi was given to do. So very different tasks. So not, Bawa had the luxury to play with his own scale, his own materiality, and create his own spaces. But I show them together. Both of them have worked in Colombo, only to say that, there's a pattern of globalization happening. There's also a pattern of localization that happens. Here you see this little temple here. Has anyone been to Colombo? That is designed by Bawa also, right? It's a Buddhist temple, which he's interpreted the original Buddhist temple in interesting, creative ways. And it's very nice. You take a picture from here, you see Bawa and Safdi in one angle at a very different scales. Anyway, so global versus local. So how do you do that, right? You can say, well, Safdi was doing something entirely different. He was making 400 luxury apartments, and Baba was just making his office, which eventually becomes a gallery and a cafe. So you can see, how do you bring these seemingly impossible paradoxes together? That kind of scale, those kind of contemporary needs, that kind of sort of modernity in the vernacular. And there are examples of that. Again, not perfect, but they are. And I show you one from Doha. Doha has several. If you've been to Doha, go to the educational city, where Rem Koolhaas has designed the Qatar National Library. And he's truly integrated the vernacular in a scale and form that is so not vernacular. And yet it is super effective, right? So that's the kind of architecture and creativity we are talking about, right? Not just pasting an adobe wall here and putting a Jaroka there as a ways of fetishizing it. Very quickly showing you the example from the Mishrab village, where much of Doha lived here until the 1950s, before oil was discovered. So it's a very different morphology. It's a village morphology, compact urban form, low-lying, non-grid, organized around kinship networks, secured with a wall, and desert architecture and aesthetic. Lots of breezeways, wind towers, shaded walkways, little pocket parks, and so on and so forth. The Mishrab Downtown Doha project in Qatar is owned by the Mishrab Properties. So here's a public-private partnership that is happening, right? And a lot of urbanization, even in the Indian context, is happening with the PPP model, right? So I think this is a good example of public-private partnership. So these properties are now owned by the Mishrab Group, and it's been subsidized by Qatar Foundation, which is subsidiary of the government. It's a mixed-use development that includes residential, commercial, and retail spaces. So Qatari government, of course, is a major investor. So the government acquired all the properties through eminent domain, all that things that you know. And then, of course, there are problems with this approach because it led to displacement of the original people. However, they argue that just compensation was given. We don't fully know that. So they acquired all the property, and they interpreted the vernacular in a scale that is very different. And quite, if you walk around that area, you have these deep, shaded courtyards, very vast walkways, deep overhangs. They retained a portion of the souk, the original, right? They create these pocket parks. You can see the overhang here, the colonnades, shaded colonnades, the breezeway effect in the way they've done massing. So there's shades. You can walk around. So the marriage between, global aesthetics requirement is possible if you have a vision for that. Is it going to be perfect and easy? No. But if you keep doing, like I said, business as usual, then we're not going to be making any significant contribution either to architecture or to the climate crisis. What I see here is what I think I coined a term. I should patent it. I call the plastic modern, instead of postmodern. You go around the and I had pictures of it, but I have it here for you. You go around any marketplace in India, it's all these plastic facades of different colors. Where is the creativity, right? I mean, yes, we had really interesting bazaars. People wanted to go there, right? It had colonnades, it was adapted to the climate, and yes, you need more retail now. You need to go higher. Do that. Do what Mishrab has done. Create similar colonnades, use something, instead of this plastic modern, where you're just putting these plastic facades of different colors and thinking that it's cool. Yeah, I was looking at it and I thought postmodernism has come to die in India. But that's a separate talk. I have more, but I'll wrap up with one last paradox. Since I'm running out of time, and that is the paradox of the smart city versus, I struggled with the human city because it gives a sense that human city is not smart. Human city is also smart. The smart city is already working with a very smart platform. It is just sort of using technologies. So instead of smart cities, I think it should be called technological cities, because smart is a misnomer. It sort of it makes you think that as if, cities were not smart before smart city came up. Cities were very smart. You need human capital to sort of, make cities effective. So for the lack of a better word, I put, human cities. So smart cities, as it promises efficiency. So it's a model based on efficiency. It uses major expensive technology, including AI, but oftentimes it creates, environments that feel impersonal and detached from everyday life, living, livelihood, and practice of life, right? It also risks alienating cities, and there continues to be a major digital divide in India, especially in developing world. So we assume that everyone has smart technology, smart gadgets outside of the phone. That's not true. And private investments fuel smart cities, but oftentimes, private has more power than public. So their interests are being met. The public, our cities are giving huge data to them to sort of monitor us, our walks, what we buy, our eyeball movement on the phone, right? We're being sold and commodified to run these operations. So fine, it's a bargain, but you have to be thinking about that. What information is, fine for public to share, like the facial recognition softwares, and so much, and so many other things, right? So smart cities also rely on that. I showed you this this initiative from Singapore Smart Nation Initiative. It aligns with again the parameters of smart cities. They're essentially focusing on digital infrastructure, which India is also trying. They're trying smart mobility, which is keeping track of vehicles, their speed. So you can now get tickets, from machines in the U.S. Machines send you a ticket if you're speeding, or if you take a wrong turn. E-governance, which is already happening here. Sustainable urban living, not so much here, because it's looking at again using data to tailor emergency responses, which is a good thing generally, but also using personal data and consumption patterns and habits to think about water consumption and water usage and so on and so forth. So it's a truly data-driven governance model, right? It's not yet fully been able to bridge the gap that I said, digital divide, but places like Singapore and in Mexico City, right? Let me see, I lost my. Let me trace back. So smart cities are smarter when they use human-centered technology. And here's an example where I'm trying to show you the marriage between, smart city and the human city. I think it really comes together in Mexico City. I was there a couple of years back. So they've embraced smart city technologies, but they haven't compromised the public good, right? So they're using these global implementation tools while sort of providing access to what we call jhuggi jhopdis and serving millions of people on an everyday basis through these cable buses, right? So they've merged the smart technology using all the data, when people need it, how often it should run. So all these sort of, favelas that you see, they are on mountains. So without this cable bus, people had very few opportunities for livelihood. They could barely get out of their places, right? And now they can come to the city, they are well connected with the world. And so I see this as a really good example of bridging the smart city and the human city, because they prioritize that instead of a large conference facility, right? So their heart is in the right place, right? So it brings about improving mobility for low-income communities, reducing carbon emission, affordability in transit, sustainability in transit, and bettering the lives of millions of people. And you can read about the Mexico City uh, bus. So let me just come to the last slide. I'm going to leave all the other conflicts. So, key takeaways. I think there is a there, going back to Stein's phrase. It's just that we need to be looking for that there, and sort of reimagining the there in the context of our present realities, our constraints, and, looking at the wonderful alternative practice that is happening. I glanced over some, but there's a lot more. People are doing practice against the grain. And there's a lot to learn from them, even from a site scale to the neighborhood scale to larger city scales. People are trying to do their part in addressing some of these global challenges that we were looking at, right? So urban paradoxes are not dead ends, but opportunities for creative, inclusive, and sustainable solutions. So next time when you run into a paradox, don't put your hands up on your head. You can think about how you can sort of, resolve it, even a small piece of it, right? Cities must, and I didn't cover these paradoxes in this talk, cities must adapt, remain flexible, which COVID has taught us, and develop locally responsible strategies that balance competing needs, right? So the most successful urban transformation embraces both global innovation and community-driven approaches. And I think Mexico City's cable bush is an example of that. So by reframing these paradoxes and challenges as possibilities, which I wanted to convey through this talk, we can truly shape resilient and equitable built environment. And I end with that. Thank you.
Thank you for the inspiring talk, Dr. Chalana. You truly provided us with valuable insights today. It's quite clear from the ideas that were shared today about the paradoxes in the built environment, be it sustainability related to growth, and the cases made by you, be it the Bullet Center, the Safdie's building in Colombo, or even 100% circular Amsterdam. They can spark a lot of positive change and innovation in our own contexts. So let's take these insights ahead and apply them to our own context. Thank you again for your very valuable insights. As we conclude today's inaugural session, I would like to extend a heartfelt thanks to all the dignitaries present here, also the speakers as well as the attendees for their presence and contributions. A special appreciation to the organizing committee that includes the persons from the IT department as well as our volunteers for their relentless efforts in making this conference possible. With this, we officially commence Bnca Research Hub's National Conference on Built Environment and Beyond 3.0, Challenges and Opportunities. Before we move to our individual sessions which are planned for today, let us all stand up for the national anthem. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे. Thank you all. Please join us for tea outside the auditorium, and then we proceed to the first floor for the presentation sessions on culture and heritage and environment. Once again, welcome to BNCA's National Conference, first floor, room number 1.